And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sara Bible.
Thank you all so much for having me and inviting me to come and join y'all. I had no idea this was even a thing until recently, and I'm so glad I know about it now, because y'all have an awesome ministry in the city of Tuscaloosa, but then also, in the surrounding areas, and that's amazing. I am a volunteer, and I work closely with our local pregnancy center back in Demopolis, Alabama. We actually service 4 counties in our area, and we see a lot of girls who, if we weren't there, they would be coming straight to Tuscaloosa. And they may or may not, whether they end up at Choices or they end up at the abortion clinic, we would never know. But because we are there for that local ministry, we kind of stop it somewhat before they can get up to Tuscaloosa. But I have been involved in pro-life ministries and pro-life advocacy since my conception, actually. And I know that kind of sounds strange to say, but so my birth mother, her name was Kimberly. She is so very special to me. So I'm actually adopted. But my birth mother, she was a high school senior, when she found out that she was expecting. Which is, we see a lot of high school seniors that, for whatever reason, find themselves in a position where they're expecting a baby. But for hers was a little bit different. So her Christmas break actually turned into probably somewhat of a nightmare. She was actually, over her Christmas break of her senior year, she was raped by 2 men that she didn't know. And she will never know who they are. And so as a high school senior, she's having to deal with and understand and process all that comes along with the questions and concerns that, when a rape is involved, especially when you don't even know who they are and how they targeted you, why you over somebody else. And then through the process of dealing with that, she learns that she's conceived through that rape. And so now not only does she have to deal with the rape, but she has to deal with this unexpected and unwanted pregnancy. And she, in some ways, it's even harder because she couldn't look back and say, well, I did this, I made this decision, I made these choices, and so now I have a baby. She didn't make any decisions. She didn't make any choices. Someone else made them for her. But she actually concealed her pregnancy for 7 months. So she didn't tell a family member, she didn't tell a friend, she didn't share it with anybody that she was expecting. So she walked across her high school graduation with a secret that nobody knew. Whether or not she attended prom, she took senior finals, however that looked for her, that second semester of her senior year, she's hiding a secret, a pretty big secret that no one knows. And I can't help but wonder if maybe that the Lord just kind of closed her mouth, because there could have been someone in her life that would have steered her in a different direction. I have no idea. But for whatever reason, she did. She stayed silent. And at 7 months pregnant, she decided that she was ready to share with her family. And her family was very loving and compassionate to her. And they got her all the care that they could give her and love and stuff like that. But somewhere in those 7 months of processing and thinking and questions that she did just between her and the Lord, because there was no one else, she knew that abortion was not an option for her. She shared that with in her little story that I ended up with, and she didn't know what she was going to do, but she knew that abortion was not an option, which I think is a powerful something for a high school senior to not know what she's going to do, but she knows what she's not going to do. But then in the process of figuring out what she was going to do, she picked adoption. That's how she decided to parent, was through adoption. And so she gave birth to me, and at 5 weeks, I got my forever family through adoption. And I love to share that, because that is such a picture of the gospel to me, especially at this Christmas season, because you have a very young teenage girl. We're not really sure how old Mary is, but it could be anywhere from 15 to about 18 is what we've kind of learned. And she finds out that she's expecting a baby. And it wasn't something that she had planned on, and it wasn't something that she chose, but it was something that the Lord chose for her. And she chose life. Our Christmas story comes from an unplanned pregnancy. And then through his life, death, and resurrection, we have the ability to be adopted into God's family. When we accept Christ as our Savior, we become co-heirs with Christ and sons and daughters of the Most High God. And so I can't imagine a better picture than an unplanned pregnancy that we see every day all over the streets of our cities and all over our country. And then the wonderful gift of adoption is to how the Lord chose to have communion with us. So that is my story. That's how I'm here today. And my adoptive parents have always had a heart for this ministry before they decided to start a family, and then especially after. So, I mean, I learned to walk in the rooms of the ProLife ministry back in my hometown, and I actually spoke at a banquet as a 2-year-old. I think I did more of the unwanted speaking than the wanted speaking, but I was on stage with my parents and stuff, and so something that the Lord has just given me a heart for and a passion for. And a lot of that is from my parents, but I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I had someone who chose life on my behalf. When I didn't have a voice to make a choice, but someone made a choice on my behalf, and it's one of the things I can't help but sharing. So thank y'all so much for coming, and thank y'all so much for the work that y'all are doing here. You talked about y'all's ultrasound bus. Our ministry in Demopolis is actually in the process of going medical. So by our October 1st, 2020, we will have ultrasound in our facility to offer girls. And as we've learned to grow into this ministry, we've learned that over 90% of the time, when moms can see that heartbeat, see that monitor, they choose life. And that's a big statistics. I mean, you're good if you're at a 40-60 kind of thing, but I mean, we're looking at over 90%. So the fact that y'all have this bus coming around and that y'all are encouraging girls to take advantage of that resource, that is huge. That is huge. So thank y'all so much for having me. Thank you so much for letting me share. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer them. Yes.
Isn't there an ultrasound bus in Montgomery?
Mm-hmm.
Does that come up?
It does not. And I think, I'm sure if we ask them to, they might, but we are a little far.
We desperately need coordination with various cities in central Alabama,
right,
to coordinate. We can support a bus, and we have this bus wanting to come down. We're hoping to support them. We need better coordination and getting the message out. As you know, the ultrasound bus, as soon as a woman who's on the fence sees the image of the ultrasound, the success rate for keeping the baby is what, Paul Lake?
Over 80%.
What?
Sure.
80, 90, yeah.
No.
Yeah, we need much better coordination. It's one of the things, if anybody out there who sees it on Facebook wants to help, we need lots of people doing lots of things in the Central Alabama pro-life movement.
And we see a lot of girls that come through our center that would be a huge resource for them because they can't get to us. I mean, Demopolis is a small city, but sometimes for them to get across town, that's like us trying to get to the moon. And I mean, we see so many girls that they weren't able to come to Bible study, they weren't able to come to class, they weren't able to come to whatever they've been invited to because they simply didn't have a way to get there. We see a lot of girls that they may have had a way, and then that transportation backs out. And sometimes it can be something as small as the weather. We have one girl that I remember just recently, we said, hey, we've missed that you weren't able to come, and she said, well, it was raining. And, I mean, and that was the end of it, but because it was raining, however her transportation was supposed to get, it fell through simply because of rain. And so to have that resource for a bus that will come to them, or at least come to an area that's closer to where they are, maybe in walking distance, that may be, a shorter drive, something like that, that's huge. That is huge, and I'm sure it's the same. I'm sure it's the same in a larger area, but I know especially in our rural area, to get girls there, and that's big to offer that. So absolutely, y'all are doing a great job with that, a great ministry with that for sure.
So you work with the Crisis Pregnancy Center in Demopolis?
I'm a volunteer, yes sir. So I have a full-time, just regular job that I work on a Monday through Friday kind of thing. But yes, I'm a volunteer there. I've spoken at 2 of their banquets before, and stuff like that. So
what's the name of that Crisis Pregnancy
It's West
Center?
Alabama Save a Life.
Oh, okay.
And we service Sumter County, Hale County, Sumter County, Hale County, Marengo County, and Greene County.
Oh, that's
Wow.
good to know.
That's a big chunk.
It is.
And they're
So-
open like 5 days a week?
That is our eventual goal. Right now, we are open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the afternoons. We are looking at adding either Monday or Friday, or we're trying to strategically pick which day, because both days seem to be big in the week. I mean, and even in our lives, we think about it like, you get sick over the weekend and you're like, okay, if I don't feel better, I'll go on Monday. Or you get busy and you're like, okay, it's finally Friday, I've got to get this taken care of, whatever it may be. so we're trying to strategically pick one and then the other, and then we're making slow but surely steps to go from 3 days to 4 days to 5 days, and then from there extending hours within those days. And I think ultrasound will be a big part of that as well. So
Absolutely. And so we have a girl that comes from Moundville or from Greensboro that needs help. We can send them to y'all,
Absolutely.
and y'all can offer them free diapers and free,
Yeah.
and send them to the different resources that they need.
Absolutely.
and
So
help
every
them.
girl that walks through our doors, we offer them we offer that free pregnancy test, which a lot of them are looking for. But before we do that, we have an intake process, and what that looks like is some of it's just to get to know you, so that we can kind of get the proper paperwork we need, but also get to fill them out, get to know them. And every girl is presented with the gospel. And some of that comes through, we see girls all the time that are already believers, and they just need to have that conversation to kind of be reminded of what's in their heart, or to fill out, like, I found myself in this situation and I don't really know how it matches what I say my faith is. And then we also have a lot of girls that we see that, for whatever reason, they don't have a faith. Maybe it's because they're of another faith, or because they just kind of, we live in the South, and so they've heard about Jesus, they've seen churches their whole lives, but never actually, found a relationship with Christ, learned to be a part of a body of community and stuff like that. But yeah, so all of them, before they get that pregnancy test, they have to go through our process of getting to know us, let us get to know them, and us sharing the gospel with them.
I'd say you ought to talk to St. Leo's,
That would be a good resource for sure.
because they'll be openly pro-life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a lot of active people there. And if they're not dealing with you yet, that's another resource.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. We have a lot of churches in our area that are involved, but I'm not sure if they are or not. So that would be a definite something we need to reach out to them and see how we can be more involved with them and how they can be more involved with us, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Is that Father Shinnick?
Father Shinnick, yeah.
Okay.
That's your contact there.
Larry.
Okay.
He's great.
Yeah, I've seen the church. I mean, it's a beautiful church. I've just never gotten to meet Father Shinnick. Yeah, and so that's a great resource to contact him directly and say, we want to be involved with y'all, and how can we partner with y'all? Because I'm sure, like you said, they're doing amazing things already.
Because the
For sure,
Catholic
so.
Church here is a huge donor for the Save Life here now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They give a lot. The people in the Catholic Church here gives a lot of money, so it would be certainly a place that y'all want to talk to.
Yeah, and in ministry and stuff, like, you don't like to talk about money, but that's a huge resource, because we can't do what we do without supporters, and so I'm so glad y'all shared that resource.
And
for
the
sure.
Catholic churches, the Knights of Columbus through the Catholic Church, there's a group through the Catholic Church that provide ultrasounds for free to the crisis pregnancy centers
Okay.
around the world.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, all kind of resources. I feel like I need to be writing this stuff down.
So Father Shinnick was definitely somebody you'd want to go see.
Okay.
And just to invite him to come visit your place or whatever, and just get to know him. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much for letting me share. If y'all don't have any other questions, or yes, sir.
I was wondering, I don't know if you could talk about, but do you still have your relationship with your birth mother, or how did you connect with her, or
Yeah.
was it? I guess it must have been an open adoption or something like that.
It was actually a closed adoption.
Okay.
So I was adopted in the early '90s, and so back then, unless you just knew them individually, open adoptions really kind of weren't as open or as common as they are now. And so when I went through Lifeline in Birmingham, which is an adoption agency up there, a Christian organization up there. And so they have a practice, I guess, that you have to wait until you're 18 to contact your birth mother, and that just kind of adds some wisdom to take some of the fairy tale out of the real life story. And so I was actually 20 when I attempted to contact her, and she actually went through the adoption agency, and her response was, "Thank you for calling. I got your message. Y'all have a great day." So I really didn't get to have contact with her any, which I can't really blame her. I mean, that was kind of I could see not wanting to go back through that door kind of thing. But they did when my parents got all of the final paperwork from the adoption agency, there was a non-descriptive but a bio about her, like how old she was. She was actually headed to college. She had a major picked out, some physical descriptions, things like that about her. But I think the coolest thing is that she actually picked my parents. So the way that adoption agency works is they give the adoptive or the birth mothers 3 or 4 kind of bios. Again, no names, no specific facts, but just general information about these parents that are interested in adopting. And so my birth mother actually picked my adoptive parents. And in that process, she got a little bit about them, and we got a little bit about her. So,
That's a big deal, because a lot of the women that we talk to when we're at the abortion clinic, we talk to them about adoption, and when they think of adoption, they think of, you're giving your baby up to people you have no idea who they are or how they're going, if they're going to take care of the baby or whatever. We're able to tell them, look, through Lifeline adoption agency, the mother is able to handpick who the parents are, whether they are Christian or non-Christian or like football or whatever, and they get to pick. It's in total control of the mother who they pick to be the parents.
They are.
And that's a big deal when people realize that. They go, oh, okay, I'm not just giving my baby up.
Yeah, and we see a lot of girls like that I've had conversations with, but at the center and just individually. I've had people like myself go, your birth mother didn't want you; she gave you away. And that is completely a kind of a skewed view. I can see where it would come from, but that's not true. It's
right.
And I love something I learned through a wiser older person is the wording of parenting through adoption, because they're still being a parent, they're still choosing what's best, they're still loving on their child in the best way possible, which is what a parent does.
She chose your life.
Yeah, she chose life, and she chose to use a resource of some other people that wanted to be parents and were in a position to do so in a different way than she was able to do. So.
And through Lifeline, I've heard that through a lady that adopted a baby, that they let the biological mother meet with the baby after the adoption.
Yeah, open adoption and semi-open adoptions are both really big now. It just kind of wasn't a thing when I was adopted back, years ago, but it is now.
Yeah.
And they that's something that the birth mother can decide what she wants, as well as the adoptive parents can decide kind of what they're interested in. And the semi-adoption works through, there's phone calls or there's letters or things like that, but there may not be direct contact. And then the open adoptions offer opportunities for them to get to know each other face to face, and that's a lot. That's a lot for the child and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
That's a special relationship.
Very healthy for the baby and for
it is. And there's been times before that I've asked the question, how can I miss someone that I've never met before? Is that even possible? Can you miss someone that you don't actually have a relationship with? But then I think about, I do have a relationship with my birth mother. She and I were one flesh pretty much for 9 months. And so there is that connection. And so I think it is possible. And so I think and same for the birth mother. Whether my birth mother chose to hold me and have some contact with me while she was in the hospital, but not after the fact. Some of them, they don't want any contact with the baby. But what they don't realize is for those first 9 months of that baby's life, they do have contact and they do have connection and they do have a relationship with him. And so it is possible for the baby to miss that birth mother. And it is possible for that birth mother, no matter how much contact she had, to miss that baby. And so, I think the open adoptions have been a great resource for both the birth mother as well as the child and the families and stuff like that. So, absolutely.
How do you address, or what would you say to some woman who's in an unplanned pregnancy and she's just thinking about adoption? How do you address that person? If she's sitting right in front of you right now, how do you talk to them, or what advice do you give them, or what point of view do you give them?
Sometimes I'll show my story if I feel like that's the kind of the door the Lord's leading for me. But a lot of conversations I've had with them, I ask them, I say, okay, if you could paint the perfect picture for your child, what do you want? What do you want that baby to grow up with? And they kind of look at me and I'll say, do you want it to be a 2-parent home? Do you want them, what kind of schools do you want to go with them? Do you want them to have a bike? Do you want them to, get to take ballet lessons? Do you want them to, get to go to the Chick-fil-A drive-thru? Whatever it may be that they kind of picture. And sometimes for them it's the life that they grew up with. Sometimes it's the opposite of what they grew up with. But think about what do you, if you could give that child that perfect life, what would you want for them? and then ask them to think, you know, if you took care of this baby, if you were the mother and or father, if the father's involved to this parent, would you be able to give them that perfect life? We all know life is not perfect, but would you be able to give that to them? And some of them can go, you know, I really think so. I really think that, you know, I've got family and friend support, I've got resources, you know, the father's involved, things like that, and you go, okay, well, you know, maybe adoption isn't the option for maybe you do want to walk through with parenting that child in the traditional way. But a lot of them go, well, no, because family and friends are not support system. They don't have that involved. The father is not involved, or it's iffy if he's going to be involved. A lot of them are young, so the financial and practical resources, you know, to take care of the baby's physical needs aren't there. A lot of them are young, and so they don't know what the emotional needs the baby has because they don't know what their emotional needs are. So just kind of let them think through it. If they go, no, not really, then you think through, okay, like how do you want to go about remedying that? And some of it's, okay, so like let's finish school, or let's get a job, you know, like let's take steps to do that. And some of it's, I really don't have a way to remedy that, and so maybe adoption would be a picture and an option for them to tell them, like, you're not giving your baby, again, use that, you're not giving your baby away, you're parenting this way instead of the traditional way, but through this, you're going to be able to give them a family, a two-parent family. You're going to be able to give them a couple that wants children, that has the resources to do whatever it is, you know, give them that bike, give them those ballet lessons, whatever it is that they want for that child that they may not be able to provide. And so a lot of it's kind of putting it back in their hands, and you're just kind of guiding that conversation and guiding that that thought process as they kind of process through. Because it needs to be a decision that they make. Just like choosing to parent the traditional way is a decision that they need to make. We can't force them as family and friends, but also just as life advocates. We don't need to force on them one or the other, but they need to, because they need to be okay with what they're doing. You know, it's not going to be healthy for them. Sure, the baby got a great life, but if it's not a healthy decision for them, then that's still something that needs to be addressed. So, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
Yeah, that's really good.
so
That's really
yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah. What time is it?
10 after.
Okay, all right. One of the things, you know, I'm so impressed with you. Oh my gosh, I had no idea you were that good of a speaker. You're really good. Wow. How do you arrange speaking engagements?
I'm
Who can
kind of
contact
new
you?
to this. I do have a Facebook page that I've created in the last year that's got my contact information on it, but right now it's just kind of word of mouth.
Okay.
As people have my contacts, people will say, hey, you need to call Sarah, you need to email Sarah, things like that.
Mhm.
I would love for the Lord to eventually grow this into something more, just because I feel like I have something to say through him. But yeah, right now it's just kind of word of mouth, and social media has helped a little bit. So that's actually how I found y'all. So.
What's your
Good.
the Facebook page? Is it the Save a Life Facebook page? or-
No, that we do have one for that, but I have a personal one, and it's Sarah Bible, and then it has Christian and ProLife speaker behind it. I can write it down. I don't have a pen right
That's
now, but I
good.
can write it down.
remember
So
that, yeah.
Christian
Yeah.
and
Christian
pro-life.
and ProLife speaker.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
That's good.
And it's got my bio on it, and then I shared that I was coming here. It kind of shares what I'm doing and things like that.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah.
How did you get the name Bible at the end there?
I was lucky enough to be adopted by two parents that was their
Their
last
last
name.
name.
So,
Okay.
and I love to tell people we have a Lord that just loves to make us smile.
Mark?
Because my first name is biblical, my last name is
Mhm.
Bible,
Well.
and then I felt called to ministry, and I got a degree in religious studies and a master's in
Ah.
discipleship. So
Oh.
I kind of did all of it, you know.
Wow.
But
Wow. I had no idea her credentials. Thank you, Lord, for providing something so.
well, his credentials are much more important than my credentials.
Well, that's right.
So.
And you don't have to have any skills out there. If he calls you, he'll
Exactly.
equip you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
don't
Exactly.
be afraid. Yeah,
Yeah.
to do something. Yeah, we have like diaper drives you know,
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah, and you shared having a baby shower, either for a specific mom or just in general for your crisis pregnancy center. That has been huge for us. I don't know, that's how so many of our resources at our center has come in, where a ladies group or a missions group or a church, whoever has said, hey, let's have a baby shower for Save a Life. And sometimes we've gone to some and it's a party. Like they really have the baby shower. And sometimes it's just, they call it a baby shower, but it's more of a drive, and they kind of collect things over time, and then they give it to us and stuff like that. And so that's been a huge resource for us.
Wow.
Where and sometimes it's been for specific moms, like the one that you just recently met, where they know of a specific need of a specific mom that's got something. And then sometimes we have some ladies that they don't know, ladies groups or missions groups that don't have a specific someone in mind, and so they'll just do a general one for that crisis pregnancy center so that they have the resources. And I'm not sure exactly how Choices works, but I know with ours we have a baby boutique, and they have to they have to earn the ability to get to shop there. By coming to classes and being involved and coming to different things that we offer. But that ours, they earn mommy money is what we call it. And then they get to shop with that mommy money for whatever it is that they feel like they need or thing that they want. And we have some moms that they spend all of their money on the practical things, the diapers, the wipes, the clothes, the things like that. And we have others who they have enough resources to get the smaller practical things, so they save it up and they get that bigger item, like the crib that's been donated, or the stroller that's been donated. You know, it just depends on what that mom kind of sees as a need and sees as a want. So, you know, all of it's important. So yeah, I loved y'all's suggestion about that for y'all's local area for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So this is great. You know, learning how to work with the other. Thank you so much. And definitely, wow, she's a really good speaker. Yeah. She just did this off the cuff too. So it's really hard to do. She has very good presence about her. What are the in Alabama? What are the specific adoption laws like? Like if a mom is out there and she's like, well, what if I change my mind? Or how long does she have to, let's say she gives birth to the baby, she picks the parent out, and then something happens. How does that work? Or, you know, how does that work? What are the laws right now? Because I don't know what they are.
I can't quote them for you, but I do know that it's going to look differently depending on how the mom chooses to go through adoption.
Okay.
So
the mother has a choice.
If they go through an adoption agency like I know of Lifeline, and then there's another one down in South Alabama that I cannot think of the name of right now. Children of the World, I think is what it's called. But if you go through an organization, it's going to look differently than if you just go directly through a lawyer. And it's also going to look differently if they go, if they just place their baby for adoption to a general parent, or if they're being adopted with, like, you find out I'm pregnant, you know me personally, and so you choose to parent my child for me. So all that's going to look kind of differently. But they do have the ability to say yes and no, and they do have the ability, especially before they give birth and the days or so after, while they're still in the hospital, they have the ability to, you know, it's hard for those adoptive parents, but they do have the ability to say that they don't want it. So yes, ma'am.
I don't know what the laws are currently.
Yeah.
A few years back, it was 72 hours.
Okay.
72
Thank
hours.
you. Yeah,
From that
72
time,
hours.
From the time they signed the papers, 72 hours before it went through.
Okay.
And that was if everything was in order. Like if there was an absent birth father or something, then there's something called
and
at
so,
risk.
yes.
And so the birth father can come along.
Yeah, and so like for mine, for exactly the at-risk of it, so my adoption was actually pending for an extended period of time, because when the birth father is unknown, they have to put out a like a search for him kind of thing in certain public records in certain public areas.
Papers.
Right, and newspapers and other kind of things like that. And so for me, they had to do that twice, because you can't do more than one. You had to do, so they had to do birth father number 1, and then they had to do birth father number 2, because it was by 2 men that, you know, they don't know which one is actually the biological father. Now in my case, there really wasn't much of a risk that anyone was going to step up and say.
Well, then they would be available to be charged with rape.
Exactly.
Right,
So there wasn't really a concern, but my parents did have to agree to. But my birth mother had to agree to. My parents had to agree to also that, like, so my parents were accepting me kind of with pending stuff, because they, you know, should someone step forward and claim it, then they would have to proceed forward. So, and it's gonna look, mine looks totally different than, like, if you've got, like you said, an absent father who's, you know, they may know who it is, but he's just not
Right,
involved.
and if
kind of
he
thing.
hasn't ever
So-
been notified,
Right.
I mean, there are laws in this state where 7 years have gone by.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, somebody
Right.
from another state, but
Right.
I don't know how that's affected now, you
Mhm.
know, and also Alabama has grandparent laws. I know that the state of Alabama recognizes birth parents as sovereign, so I'm not sure if the grandparents even have a say anymore. But there are grandparent laws now that I'm not sure how.
There are, and a lot of that comes where I encourage people, especially to no matter what conversation I'm in, to go through a trusted adoption agency. That there's two really good ones in Alabama, and then there's one that's a Catholic church that's in Alabama it's worldwide. I can't think of the actual name of it, but it's through y'all's Catholic church. But to go through a trusted one, just because they're going to help kind of guide you through the grandparent laws and guide you through the different things.
Like Sam McClure?
Just
You
Sam
use
McClure.
Yeah,
McClure?
right, baby Sam, right, that's
Sam
one.
McClure.
TheAdoptionFirm.com.
And
Yeah.
the lawyers, all of them, but you don't need
So-
an agency necessarily.
You don't
They'll
have to,
guide
right.
you, but a lawyer will work too.
Right. They will.
Okay,
Just a lawyer.
They will.
so you don't even need an agency.
You don't.
Actually, if you really even know the people,
Yeah,
you can just go to the courts yourself and petition yourself.
you can.
Wow.
Could you say that again? I didn't hear you. If you
If you know the people, or say it's a cousin or somebody, you can just petition the
You
courts.
petition
And
court.
right, and you don't have to necessarily even go through an adoption process if you know these people.
Right,
and
you're
trust
just
these people,
changing
there's guardianship
custody.
and other options too, to
Right.
help you parent this child when you're ready or in the meantime or forever, or however you wanna work it. It's very flexible in this
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
Very
So
flexible.
each situation is going to look different. So yes, ma'am.
Yes, right.
Yeah, exactly. And I do know that the adoptive parents, they have papers that they have to sign. So like my parents had to, through their adoption process, they had paperwork and an oath that they had to take that they couldn't try to return me. Like I'm a non-returnable item
No
kind of
refund.
thing. Right. Kind of
Right,
thing.
there's some things that are finalized and there's
Right.
some things that are left open, even
Right.
indefinitely or for a period of time.
Right. So mine was actually, I was born in September. I came to live with my parents in October, and it was finalized in February. That was my timeline, and everyone's going to look slightly differently, but they
Okay.
do have those windows where things have to be finalized after the fact, after the baby is born. So, but yeah, I think 72 hours on the specific question you were asking. I think that's correct. It's still
It used to
two.
be, I don't know what it is now, but
I
I'm
think
pretty sure
that's still
that's
the
what it
same
is.
now, but I'm
And
not
every state is
positive,
different.
so.
I think Oklahoma is 6 months, so,
Yeah, some of them are much longer.
So one of the ladies in the audience just said that each state, of course, has their own laws and things like that.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for,
While the people are out at the abortion clinic trying to counsel with women that are considering abortion, I ran into where a father had a daughter that had been raped, and he was like, well, I don't, we don't want this to have a child, and the rapist, and the guy that raped the girl have anything to do with this child. So the state of Alabama has recently passed a law to where the person that raped the woman has no authority and
Oh,
over
interesting.
and can have no participation in the life of the child.
That's actually called the Abby Pitts Law, and I know the girl
Praise
that
God.
was.
do
Praise God.
you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a huge deciding factor for this guy that I talked to, his daughter there, and let him know that, and
Yeah.
help him understand a little bit better about what his options were, and so he can make a better decision on what they want to do.
Wow, that's really huge. I didn't know about that. That's just been
It's a
recent.
newer something.
Yeah,
it's a
and
recent
it's called
something,
the what law?
It's called the Abby Pitts Law. I actually have the opportunity. I've gotten to know and meet Abby.
Wow.
She's got a very powerful story as well. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the rapist of the baby has no legal rights in Alabama. That's
Right.
very, and Paul said on the sidewalk that was a deciding factor in to possibly go through with an abortion or not. And so by knowing that knowledge, you never know how you can be out there and save a life. And that's what this meeting's all about, sharing information.
Debbie?
I was just wondering if that only applied to a conviction.
Interesting point.
That's what I wanted, since you said
I'm
you
not
knew
sure.
it
I'm
was
not really
happening,
sure.
but
I'm
I
not
was
really sure
thinking
how the details actually
Right.
finalized out. But no, it doesn't. If you like, for my case, the rapist was unknown. But like in Abby's case, she was at a party. Like she can pinpoint exactly who she was the victim of, kind of thing. And so convictions doesn't have to be. If you can pinpoint who it is.
Maybe a
then-
DNA test or something, is
And
that
why
what
didn't
happens,
she
even if
go
there's not a
and
conviction?
press charges?
Because I knew them personally, and they were. I mean, it was one of those. It was a horrible situation, and there is no right and there is no wrong decision. They were a bunch of teenagers, and all of them were drunk, and it just ended badly.
Badly.
Kind of thing. And so they just decided for personal reasons for their family and for his family not to press charges. But they kind of severed ways, but not to press charges. But like you said, through DNA testing and through, they can confirm that was exactly who and what and everything.
And a
So,
reminder, it's Christmas break, a lot of young people are
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of time on your hands. Decisions that you make, whether to get inebriated or use drugs or whatever, can have life-changing results. Don't lose your faculties, in general.
Absolutely.
It ends in, I don't think it ever ends good. Does anybody ever I don't think it ever ends
Never has for
good.
me.
Moderation in the drinking law is 21 for a reason.
You strike multiple
Yeah,
times.
I think somebody had one time that they could remember it actually worked out okay. I guess not. I don't know. Nobody's talking on that one. Yeah, I'm an old grandma, and I see things from a different point of view. And as a young person, you think, "Oh, this is exciting." My parents aren't going to tell me what to do, and I don't like that the church tells me this or that my grandma tells me this or that. But you know what? You're probably better off watching a movie at home than being in a car with people, and all these things you're endangering your life, and you really need to think about the consequences.
I'm only 28, and I have learned that there's a lot of wisdom in those older figures in your life that have seen more and done more and experienced more. So.
Yeah. I was wondering how old you were. I didn't want to ask. I didn't know if you were 19 or I wasn't sure how old you were.
I mean, I'll claim 19. I'm okay with that.
Oh, you could pass for 19.
Well, you know
That's
what,
fine.
I wanted to put up, mention Avery Lake. She's somebody who we ought to really honor. She's
Yes, Avery Lake received the ProLife.
Outstanding commitment to life
life,
award.
and she
for
was
2019
really
also.
persecuted in her Catholic school
Outstanding commitment
for
life,
standing
yes.
up
Avery
for
Lake.
life.
Yes, anyone who's pro-life anywhere in any church is going to receive hostility. And if you can't,
She's a beautiful lady, a
if
beautiful
you're afraid of
girl.
hostility, you don't need to be in pro-life
Right.
work.
Yeah, yeah, and she just is an amazing person,
Yes. Avery
and
Lake
has
is
a
amazing.
very
Yeah.
is just really filled with the Lord.
Yes, she's a very, very holy young
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
Yeah, very, very wonderful young lady. Yeah, and
She
we actually
radiates
managed to
holiness.
surprise her too. So,
Surprises are the best.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what a lot of times an unplanned pregnancy is. God talks about the generations, and He's given this child to these people for a reason. It isn't just this child; it's this child's family and this child's kids, and it's on and on and on it goes.
You know,
Yes, sir.
we can look right now and you can see how Sara radiates light.
Yeah.
At the abortion clinic, we frequently, from 20 feet away, can look into a car and we'll see in the window. And once you attune yourself to it, there are people who radiate darkness. There are people who radiate light. If you get out in the pro-life ministry and really get out there, there are people who radiate light, and there are people who radiate darkness. You get to see, as the medieval mystic said, there is another world, and it's in this one.
Yeah.
And if you do pro-life work, you get to understand the other world that is right in this one.
Yeah. There's definitely good and evil, and when you're in the pro-life movement, you are on God's side, and death is on the devil's side every time, no exception. Natural death, if it's God's choice and God's timing, that's a different situation. But as we talked about, physician-assisted suicide, and all the other 9 yards, it's the devil's choice. And once he gets a woman to commit abortion, and this is something that I see when you're out there on the sidewalk, I'll never forget the woman who came up to me and she said, I came to this abortion clinic when I was a young girl, and I was so far along they had to send me to Atlanta, to Grady, to have the abortion. And she said the sound of the baby's body hitting the metal bucket as I delivered it, she said, I hear that sound all day long, every day, and she said for 25 years.
I think abortion recovery is a huge ministry that
It
we
is.
kind of shy away from or forget about with the whole pro-life area. We just started we just finished our first abortion recovery Bible study with a group of ladies at our center. I don't know if Choice is what theirs looks like and stuff, but that's a huge something because we see so many women that sounds or smells or sights, they're things that they just, it never goes away.
Triggers.
There's a trigger, yeah.
Okay. Alright. I think our time's about up. If anybody has a question out there, I'm sure Sarah or myself would do our best to try to answer it.
Absolutely.
And again, we thank everybody for being here. Would you like to close us in prayer?
Sure.
Alright.
I would love to.
Alright.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for letting us join together today, Lord Jesus. Thank you for the conversations we've gotten to have and the words that we've been able to share. I just pray that as each one of us steps out of this room and back into the world around us, Lord Jesus, that you just prepare and equip us for the next steps that we're going to take and the people that we're going to encounter, whether it's on the sidewalk in front of the abortion clinic or with our neighbor down the street. Lord Jesus, I just pray that you prepare us and equip us for those conversations and those moments. And we will glorify you in everything that happens. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.